Khan. All praise unto the Most High God. Hey, shalom, Israel, shalom, family. I hope everybody's doing well in the spirit, man. That they enjoyed the feast of Pentecost. Take a second to watch that Pentecost lesson brought out by Brother Gabor. It was a phenomenal class. Study and meditate on it. I hope everybody did very well this week. And all praise unto the Most High God that we're able to see another Shabbat. Make it another weekend to open up the scriptures and study again, man. So I'll praise unto the Most High God for another opportunity to study His holy and divine word. Let's jump straight into it. This is the book of Colossians, chapter 3 and verse 17. And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, giving thanks to God and the Father by Him. So everything that we do, the words that we say, and everything with action that we put forth, may it be done to glorify the Most High God by way of His Son. That's why in the Paleo Hebrew we say, Call Halal Yahweh by Hashem wa Balak Yahweh Shai. This is the book of James, chapter 2 and verse 14. What does it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? So simply saying that you believe in God, right? That you fear the Most High God, that you love Him and you got a relationship with Him by word of mouth, and just simply saying you believe in Him, is this enough? Verse 18 says, Ye a man say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. So you show forth that belief, reverence, fear, love, and relationship for the Most High God by your actions. All right. And those actions should be solely, right, encouraged by the Spirit, right? Making sure that you are doing it in the right spirit, because then it's really obsolete and the Most High God doesn't have reverence unto it. So simultaneously, we want to make sure that we have faith in the Most High God and we prove our faith with our actions, and we actually put forth the actions with our faith. That makes sense. First John chapter 3 and verse 18. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Now, what is the deed and what is the truth of this week? It's understanding fornication. That's right. The title of today's lesson is Understanding Fornication, right? Because, this world has its definition and the Bible has its definition. And we understand that we love not the world, neither the things in it, and that we don't conform to this world, but rather to the renewing of our mind. So let's renew our mind today and understanding what fornication means according to the Bible. You understand? We're going to actually get the differences between the world's definition and the Bible's definition. And we're also going to dive into what spiritual fornication is and what physical fornication is according to the Bible. All right, so let's jump straight into it. The opening precept will be the commandment of the week. We're going to go 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 9 through 10. All right. It says, Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revelers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. Now, in order to really execute all of these sins and to take on all of these labels and to be known as all of these things, you have to spiritually fornicate against the Most High God. You have to literally put something, all right, before Him to and act upon it to become effeminate, to be abuser of yourself, or to become a thief or covetous. You have to literally spiritually fornicate against the Most High God and act upon it to actually be known as these things. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus primarily on fornication today, right? Not all of the others, but this one, all right? So let's get the Lord's definition of fornication, all right? When we go to the Blue Letter Bible, the Strong's 4202, it says fornication is illicit sexual intercourse. And for those who don't know, illicit is an adjective describing something that is not permitted, unlawful, or forbidden by law, customs, or societal rules. All right. So underneath, all right, the umbrella of fornication, you have adultery, you have making whores out of the daughters of Zion, or otherwise, simplistically put, prostitution. All right. And you also have what's that third one? You have adultery, prostitution, and you also have bestiality. All right. These are all three forms of basically like illicit sexual acts. Okay. Sexual immorality generally refers to any sexual behavior, act, or desire that violates accepted moral, ethical, or religious standards. All right. So let's get into, all right, the spiritual perspective according to the Bible. Spiritual fornication refers to the act of unfaithfulness towards God, often through idolatry, trusting in the world system, your oppressors, or engaging in false religious practices. This is what you can define as spiritual fornication. It's literally putting anything, all right, um, 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 in place of the Most High God. All right, investing your power, your direction, your ways of life. That's literally spiritually fornicating against the Most High God, because now your power isn't the Lord, it's whatever you've placed as your power. You understand? I'm gonna get three precepts and then I'm gonna go ahead and pass it. Um, we're gonna go to Romans chapter 9 and verse 4. It says, "Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises." So we understand that we are married to the Most High God. And when you spiritually fornicate, you're literally stepping out on the Most High God and violating that covenant that you have with Him. All right. So if I know I'm an Israelite and I say all praise unto the Most High God, but then I turn around and I say ball is life, that's me basically spiritually fornicating, because now basketball is my everything instead of the Most High God, right? Let me get another one. Isaiah chapter 61 and verse 10, it says, "I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels." So we are likened unto a bride. We are the Most High God's bride. We are married unto the Most High God. All right, by way of his son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, which is our perfect example. So what our job is to do is to mirror Christ, to walk as Christ to the best of our ability, and to keep the commandments. And whenever we put something, right, before the Most High God, we're spiritually fornicating. We're going a whoring. That's what the scripture is referring to when it says going a whoring in what Numbers chapter 15. We use the fringes to make sure that we're always in line and remembering the covenant we have with the Most High God, and walk in righteousness, to keep the commandments and to remember them. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14 and verse 12 says, "For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them the corruption of life." So anything that you put forth before the Most High God is the beginning of spiritual fornication. And when you act upon it, you become all of these titles that we read listed in 1 Corinthians 6. You understand? So there's the spiritual perspective, right? And the physical perspective, right? On fornication. What is the world's definition? And then I'm going to go ahead and slide it to you, King. And this is where brothers and sisters really need to tap in, because we need to know the contrast. We now have the Lord's definition and the understanding biblically, very briefly put, and we're going to dive into it further. But now let's get the world's definition and how we've been programmed to think what fornication is. When you Google fornication, the AI overview refers to it being consensual sexual intercourse between two people who are not married to each other. Now we see, right, Romans 15 and verse 4, right, that the biblical accounts were written for our learning, right? Second Timothy 3 and 16, for reproof, for doctrine, for inspiration of the Most High. When we read this Bible, we see that sex is marriage. We see, right, via accounts, that when two lied together, they became one flesh and a covenant was established. We see that via the scriptures, and that is our understanding. So within that, we cannot use this definition. This definition literally contradicts itself, right? We also have to understand that we don't see premarital in the Bible as well, right? This is what has been enforced on us as Christian dogma. And this is what has cultivated our minds into misunderstanding fornication. Furthermore, when you Google adultery, the AI overview refers to it as voluntary sexual intercourse between a married person and someone who is not their lawful spouse. But according to the Bible, and we're going to get it, we're going to prove it, adultery is when a man sleeps with another man's wife, or when the woman, which is the possession of the man, sleeps with anybody other than that man that she belongs to. That is what adultery is defined as, and we're going to get there. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you, King. Go ahead.
Con, that's the class. Hey, all praises to the Most High. Brother did a mighty job, mighty opening. Like it's really plain upon tables if you look at it, right? But one thing that our people like to do is they like to give heed to these seducing spirits, right? And before I get started, hey, all praise to the Most High for allowing us to be here for another week, right? Another chance to just come in this thing and edify our people, right? Like I want to start kind of with that first precept that you brought up because it's right there, point blank in your face, right? 1 Corinthians 6:9. It says, "Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves or mankind." And I can honestly start right there, right? Because one thing that really jumps out is the fact that it said fornicators and then it said adulterers, right? Part of the whole confusion, right, that our people consent to, right, is the idea that fornication is adultery and not the other way around, right? Adultery is a form of fornication, right? But when it comes to fornication, as the brother eloquently brought out, the literal definition, right? And I got to pull that right here. We can go into it, right? Is illicit sexual intercourse, right? So unlawful sex acts, right? So adultery will fall under that umbrella, right? Homosexuality, lesbianism, right? Intercourse with animals, right? Intercourse with close relatives, right? Hey, sleeping with your father's wife, right? These are forms of fornication, right? In the physical sense, right? But it's also in the spiritual sense, right? Definition 2, the worship of idols, of the defilement of idolatry, as incurred by eating the sacrifices offered to idols, right? A lot of times our people, and should I be all the way 100 with you? It's mostly sisters, right? That fall into the idea that, hey, if a man takes multiple wives, hey, he's fornicating, right? No, that's not the case, right? Because a man is allowed these things, right? A man fornicates when he takes another man's wife because he's committed adultery, right? A lot of times our people are strong with seducing spirits, right? And doctrines of devils. Here, let me get that real quick. Book of 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse number 1. It says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times, which we're living in right now, right, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils," right? It's a doctrine of devils, right? To say that a man having multiple wives is fornication, right? It's a doctrine of devils to say that a man that's literally getting with a woman, right, who isn't betrothed, who isn't married to anyone else, right, and taking that woman as his own, even though he already has a wife. That's a doctrine of devils to say that that man is in fornication when that is not the case, right? That's not the case spiritually, nor is it the case physically, right? Now, let's kind of drum into what physical fornication really is, right? Because, hey, all the things that we need to know, the way that we need to look at these things, our worldview should be literally filtered through the scriptures, right? The Bible should be our lenses, right? It should be how we walk in this earth. It should be how we perceive things in this earth, right? The Bible is pure wisdom for every situation that you may go through, right? And a lot of times our people like to go off of their emotions, which I mean, at that point, you're your own idol, right? But before I get too long with it, it's the book of Leviticus, chapter 20. I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, "And the man that committed adultery with another man's wife, even he that committed adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death," right? So adultery is defined right here, right? A man that sleeps with another man's wife and that other man's wife. Those are the adulterers, right? Verse 11, "And the man that lied with his father's wife had uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." That's another form of fornication, right? That's also adultery because your father is your neighbor, right? Verse 12, "And if a man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have wrought confusion. Their blood shall be upon them." Now that's not adultery, but it's fornication. It's unlawful, right? To lie. Actually, no, that is adultery, because if that's your daughter-in-law, that means that's what? Your son's wife. Your son is also your neighbor, right? Verse 13, "If a man also lie with mankind as he lied with a woman, both have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." Another form of fornication. Again, according to that definition, according to these scriptures, right? Homosexuality, right? Verse 14, "If a man take a wife and her mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burnt with fire, both he and they, that there be no wickedness among you." So a man can't have a wife and take her mother to be his wife as well. That's fornication, right? "And if a man lie with a beast, he shall surely be put to death. And ye shall slay the beast," right? Bestiality, another form of physical fornication, right? "And if a woman approach unto any beast and lie down there too, thou shalt kill the woman and the beast. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." Again, bestiality. Verse 17, "And if a man shall take his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, and see her nakedness, and she see his nakedness, it is a wicked thing, and they shall be cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his iniquity," right? Incest. It's another form of physical fornication, right? "And if a man shall lie with the woman having her sickness, and shall uncover her nakedness, he had discovered her foundation, and she hath uncovered the foundation of her blood, and both of them shall be cut off from among their people." Right now, I know that one's kind of confusing, right? So real quick, come on, app, right? So we're gonna get into the NLT real quick, right? It's very plain. "If a man has sexual relations with a woman during her menstrual period, both of them must be cut off from the community, for together they have exposed the source of her blood flow," right? You're not supposed to sleep with a woman when she's on her flower, right? Verse 19, "And thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy mother's sister, nor thy father's sister, for he uncovereth his near kin. They shall bear their iniquity." Also incest, right? "And if a man shall lie with his uncle's wife," adultery, "he hath uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin, and they shall die childless," right? "And if a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. He hath uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless." Again, that's adultery. And again, when you look into that particular law, right, we understand that there's a law of the next of kin, right? So if that brother dies, of course, it's on his brother to take on his wife, right? That he may produce seed unto his brother. But this, in this context, it's talking about if that brother is still alive, right? That's adultery at that point, right? So this is physical fornication, right? So when we use these words to shoot them at our people, right, we have to understand what it is that we're talking about, right? Because if we're using these words falsely, right, then not only are we bringing a false judgment, a false condemnation, right, but we're also moving in the understanding of another spirit, a small g God, if you will, right? Which is in itself spiritual fornication, right? A lot of times our people really, and they get gung ho when they think that they know what they're talking about, right? And they really don't. Let me get the classic real quick. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it, King. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 8 and verse 20, right? To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them, right? Our people move in the darkness, straight up, right? And they think that they're right, right? When at the end of the day, if they're not coming with these scriptures, right? Or if they're using these scriptures incorrectly, because you see that too, right? You see that a lot. If they feel some type of way and they think that they can back themselves up with a precept, right? Not understanding the precept, not understanding the context of the precept, right? Like, for example, 1 Corinthians 7 and 2. Book 1 Corinthians 7 and 2, right? Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife and let every woman have her own husband, right? We hear all the time, hey, you're supposed to have your own one wife and the wife's supposed to have her own one husband. That's not what that's talking about, right? When you read the context, again, precept must be upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, right? It's not even a lot of flipping, right? Shoot, and my sword is one page, right? You get the context in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 from the top. What is it talking about, right? It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you. And we just went down a whole list of what fornication would be, right? And such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. We just read that in the law, right?
Yep. Leviticus 20 and verse 11.
Exactly. We just read that, right? That's one of the forms of fornication. That's what it's talking about, right? So when it says a man should have his own wife, that means he's not sleeping with the wife of somebody else. He's not sleeping with the wife of his father, right? And again, a man can have multiple wives because none of that was listed in the sexual immorality they were read in Leviticus 20, right? But a woman who was a wife sleeping with another man was listed. So we have to understand what it is we're talking about, right? And we have to get out of our minds, hey, what you're doing is wrong because it doesn't make me feel good, right? Hey, your feelings can become an idol at the end of the day, right? And now the very judgment that you're making on somebody, you're the one that's actually guilty of it, right? Because idolatry, right, is fornication, right? And I'll get right there.
Kind, and I hope brothers and sisters are really seeing this as rebuke and meekness, the edification in the way of Christ, because we love our brothers and our sisters, and this is why we do these classes. This is why we go out into the highways and hedges to rebuke our people with sincerity, not to just shake the hand and to make ourselves feel good, but to seek restoration. That's what this is about. Is to restore ourselves back unto our God and not this place. All right. What happens when you choose the world's understanding or drink of Babylon's wine, right? With the spiritual understanding, if you understand it, right? Because when you drink of the wine of this place, that means you take on its doctrines, you take on its ways of life. And when you do that over the Lord's way of life, all right, due to emotions, feelings, and simply because that's what you're used to, what happens there? What happens after that, right? 1 John 2 and verse 15 says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Hey, the enforcement of monogamy is one of the things of this world. It says, if any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him, right? So if your preference is of this world and the way you were brought up, hey, your preference is not of the Father's. If you have a problem with any statute that is in this Bible, you have to examine it. And I'm coming from a place of sincerity and love. I myself have to consider this in other ways as well. Because there's going to be a time when Kasadia, and everybody, right, puts their feelings before the Most High God. And that's when a brother or a sister is to come to them when they recognize it and to say, hey, King, you going off this, that, and the third. Rebuking out of sincerity. And that's when I got to examine myself and say, Khan, you're right. And take accountability. So now we're seeing how the lesson kind of connects with the Pentecost lesson and also the lesson of, you know, this past Monday or this past Tuesday, Salaki, right? So we see how it all connects and how it's all about the spirit of being edified, because the whole misunderstanding of fornication can lead to an austere dominance and also, the coming out of order, and it leads to other strongholds. Now you have envy and jealousy that divides and conquers the household, breaking up the covenants that the Most High God honors, right? Get another one. It's gonna be the book of Revelation, chapter 18. I'm gonna start at verse 3. It says, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as the she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled to her double." Right? So, spiritually understanding this is all nations have taken, all right, and have received the spoils of this place. You understand? And what we have is spiritual fornication taking place. And when you are caught in the second coming of Christ and you are caught spiritually fornicating, drinking of the wine of this country that you live in, right, which is basically settling in the statutes of this world and despising the statutes of the Lord, are you going to be thrust through? You're going to receive of the plagues. You're going to receive of that.
Khan, hey, Salakia, hey, and the Lord ain't Ronald Isley either. Like, hey,
yeah, Khan.
when he about to when he get his cane, hey, getting thrust through.
Yeah.
You and R. Kelly.
See, you about to lead this play. Yeah, Khan.
Right.
Khan. That's what is it, Isaiah? I think that classic, man. I always miss that. Is it 8 and man, I'm gonna get that, man.
I think it's 15 and 13, or 13 and 15, one of them.
Salaki.
Yeah, 13 and 15, Isaiah.
Khan, I'm gonna get it real quick. I don't know why I always think it's 8 and 20. All right, Khan. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 13 and verse 15 through the Spirit. Real quick. It says, "Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished." You understand? So it kind of remind me of when I used to get whoopings as a kid, man. If I was anywhere close to the festivities that was unapproved by my mama, she had this thing, man, where she would grab the belt buckle out. She wouldn't fold it in a loop. Sometimes she'd wrap it around her fist and whoop us like that. But it'd be sometimes where she just got the buckle in her hand and she would swing wild. And if you was in the way, you was in the way. And that's exactly how the second coming of Christ is going to be, man. He's going to come with a sword and he's coming to punish, and he's going to have blood on his garment. He's going to tread the winepress. And when that takes place, if you are joined unto them, you will be thrust through, meaning you're going to catch that. So it's important that we make sure that our garments are clean, and that even though we've walked through, right, the shadow of death, right, the valley of the shadow of death, right, Babylon the Great, we want to make sure at the end our garments don't have any Babylon on it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, right? Let me get one more. John chapter 4 and verse 14 says, "But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give, him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life." Very plain. We have to drink of the water of our God and not this place. You understand? We have to get back to loving one another, not envying one another, not being jealous of one another, but prefer. If you want to have a preference, you need to prefer The loving one another. Sisters, love your sister. Brothers, love your brother. We need to get back to loving one another. You understand? Because that's what Christ wanted. Now, I have a couple accounts, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and pass it there, King. I got a couple accounts that's gonna be on physical fornication, and we're gonna read down from the top of Leviticus 20 to understand spiritual fornication, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and yield there, King. If you got anything else before I get it.
Hey, that's a mighty point you was bringing up, Rock. Hey, because I actually had that precept written down too. That Revelation 18. Hey, the Lord tells us to come out of her, right? Right, come out of her, and that doesn't mean kind of grabbing the passport and setting up a citizenship somewhere else. No, we have to come out of her mentally, spiritually, right? We have to come out of her ways, out of her doctrines, right? Because what it says that all the nations of the earth have committed fornication with her, right? First Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 16, it says, what? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For two, said he, shall be one flesh, right? And we understand Babylon, right? It's the mother of harlots, right? According to the scriptures, right? So we have to not be joined, right? As the brother said, because if we're found joined, if we're found with that same mindset, if we're found following that same ideology, right? We're still joined to Babylon. It doesn't matter if we pack up now and move to Japan, right? When the Lord comes back, it says every eye shall see him, right? And he's going to bring destruction. Judgment's going to come on all Israel. You cannot outrun these curses, right? We teach it every single week on the highways and hedges when we're running down Deuteronomy 28, right? These curses shall follow thee and pursue thee and overtake thee, right? So it doesn't matter where you go if you still have that same mindset of Babylon, right? The Lord is going to find you out and snuff you out, right? Because what? He commanded us to be separate, set apart, different from this world, right? This book of Leviticus chapter 20 from verse 26, it says, and ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be mine, right? And what is the thing that severs us, that separates us, that makes us holy, right? That sanctifies us. All of these words means set apart, right? It's the book of John. Salaki. Chapter 17 and verse, I'm going to start at verse 13, right? Yeah, I'm starting verse 13, right? It said, this is Yahweh Shah speaking. It says, and now come I to thee, and these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world, right? Yahweh Shai was separate from the world. He wasn't joined to the harlots, right? And again, all the kingdoms, all the nations of the earth was what? Committing fornication with that harlot Babylon, right? Even the concept of monogamy, right? You look into the history of it, right? It was literally started and made legal, right, by the Greeks and the Romans, right? Edomites. They made it their law to commit or to keep monogamy, right? But when you look at their actions behind closed doors, right, they did things like what? Had women on the side, had sex slaves, were going to all different types of orgies. So what good was that quote unquote monogamy, right? When you look throughout the whole scriptures and you see what, right? I mean, it's not, again, if they speak not according to this word, but I'm gonna keep reading, right? Verse 15, I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but thou shouldest keep them from the evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them through thy truth. thy word is truth, right? So again, we're commanded to be sanctified, separate, holy, set apart from all the other nations of the earth. And how do we do that, right? By fully committing and leaning into this word, right? When you say you're in the truth, right? That means you're taking the whole role, right? Not just the bits and pieces that you like, right? The ones that feel good to you, right? And then throwing out the ones that make you feel uncomfortable, right? No, you're eating the whole roll, right? Because the scriptures are very plain. If any man add or take anything from this book, right? I'm going to add the plagues to them that are written in this book and take their name out of the book of life, right? You have to eat this whole roll and with a willing mind and a pure, upright, sincere spirit, right? You have to be accepting of these things and willing to walk in these things, right? Not coming with your own doctrines, which is ultimately doctrines of devils, things that you learned in Babylon, right? Not drinking waters from broken cisterns, but only drinking waters from your own, right? The waters that come straight from your husband, right? This is the book of Jeremiah. Chapter 3. I want to start. Start at verse 6, right? It says, the Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel have done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot, right? This was our people. This is how we've been moving, right? Against our husband, against the Most High, right? And I said, after she had done all these things, turn thou unto me, but she returned not. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also, right? Again, knowing and understanding the scriptures, right? There was a separation after the rulership of King Solomon between northern and southern kingdom, right? Israel and Judah, right? And Israel was so deep into idolatry, right? Whoredom, fornication, right? That the Lord pretty much did away with them, right? And it was only Judah that remained, right? But Judah looked at that same thing, hey, and they had no fear toward the Most High God, right? And they went and followed after the same path. Right? Verse 9, and it came to pass through the lightness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks. And yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah had not turned unto me with her whole heart, but feignedly saith the Lord. Meaning what? She did it kind of half-assed, right? And that's a lot of our people. That's a mindset of a lot of our people, right? They say, hey, wake them up. They know that they Israel. And they say, hey, Shalom, Yasharallah, yada, yada, this, that, and the third, right? But when it comes to turning their heart back into the Most High, eating of this whole roll and doing the things with a sincere mind and a willing spirit, right? Hey, they kind of half-ass about that, right? Hey, the scriptures say that this is allowed, but I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. That's not for me, right? That's the not for me Israelites, right? That's that turning towards the Lord feignedly, right? Verse 11, and the Lord said unto me, the backsliding Israel had justified herself more than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words toward the north and say, return thou backsliding Israel, saith the Lord, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever, right? How prideful do you have to be to know that you have a merciful God, right? That's saying, hey, I know what you're doing. Stop doing it. Come back, and I won't be angry with you, right? That's like Ronald Isley calling old girl up before he made it to the house. He's like, hey, I know R. Kelly over there. Tell the nigga to leave. And I'm not going to have to catch no case, right? But you still continue to have R. Kelly in the house, right? We have to really look at these things, right? Look at the spirit that we moving in, right? Because pride is hateful before the Most High God. That's the sin of witchcraft, right? It's demonic. Knowing that the word says do this, but your feelings say do something else, so you rather lean to your feelings. That's fornication. That's idolatry. Your God is your belly at that point, right? Verse 13, only acknowledge thine iniquity, that thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree. And ye have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion, right? The Most High God is our husband, right? And we commit fornication each and every day when we continue to move in the mindset, right? And in the spirit, right? And in the doctrines, right? Of this world. These are things that we have to keep in mind. And for sake of time, I'm going to yield right there.
King, mighty points, mighty points, right? And I think it's pretty solidified at this point. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a couple of counts, right? We're gonna show the contrast of spiritual fornication and physical fornication via accounts, right? And then we'll go ahead and just shut it down, right? So spiritual fornication. I think going to Leviticus 20 and reading it from the top all the way down to 7, that definitely shows an account in itself on what spiritual fornication is. It gives us an example, right? So today, right, this exact account definitely reminds me of today on how our parents in our community, they go down to the mall, and what they do is they let their child sit on Santa's lap and take pictures right there at their nearby mall in December, as December 25th approaches, right? That's literally, what I think of when I read this account. So we're gonna go and read it. Leviticus 20 from the top. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, again, thou shalt say to the children of Israel, whosoever he be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn in Israel, that giveth any of his seed unto Moloch, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. And I will set my face against the man, and will cut him off from among his people, because he hath given of his seed unto Moloch, to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. Right? So that's literally, putting somebody before the Most High God, Moloch, and you're giving your seed unto him. You're sacrificing unto an idol. You understand? And that's the primary example of, eating of, a doctrine that's not of the Most High God. You're going against his commandments, right? You're spiritually fornicating and going into another way of life, right? It says what? And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man, when he giveth of his seed unto Moloch, and kill him not, then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and will cut him off, and all that go a whoring after him to commit whoredom with Moloch from among their people. Right. So I'm also holding you accountable if you see this going on and you don't say something, you don't rebuke. That's also something to take into consideration. We can take that into consideration here when it comes to seeing another brother or sister spiritually fornicate. And you're blocking, you're avoiding that, uncomfortable conversation of rebuking. You're avoiding that time where you're supposed to pull that sister aside, that brother aside, and rebuking them and telling them, hey, you went off here, and this can't happen. The Most High God is holding you accountable, and the blood of that person that is right spiritually fornicating or physically fornicating, the blood is on your hands as well, because you know better. Right? Reading on, it says what? And the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits and after wizards, and go a whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul, and will cut him off from among his people. Sanctify yourselves, therefore, and be ye holy, for I am the Lord your God. So, familiar spirits, right? Witchcraft. And after wizards, right? Going in 2026, that's the equivalent of you going to a psychic and getting a psychic reading, right? Familiar spirits, practicing witchcraft, burning sage, and reading tarot cards, and trying to communicate with dark spirits, so on and so forth. When you go a whoring, right, spiritually fornicating against the Lord and putting your power into these things, hey, the Most High God says what? You will be cut off from among His people. It's a very, very serious matter. So these are, examples of spiritually fornication. Now let's get right an account, right, and you can read upon this same account in two different places of physical fornication. Right, we're gonna go to King David committing um, adultery, or being a fornicator with Uriah's wife, right, Bathsheba. First Kings chapter 15 and verse 5. It says, because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, save only in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. So that's also, it's proven in itself, right? Kind of going back on what the brother was saying, right? How multiple wives is not a form of fornication, because it says right here, David, who had 8 wives, was only guilty when it came to him committing adultery with Bathsheba, Uriah's wife, the Hittite, right? We see here that this was the only time and the only instance where David went off. We can read about it also. 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're gonna start at verse 3. It says what? And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her. For she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. So right here, this is David laying with Uriah's wife. He commits adultery, which makes him a fornicator. 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 15, it says, know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of a harlot? God forbid. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to a harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin in a man that a man doeth is without the body. But he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. So right here we see, right, that when you're joined unto a harlot, when you're making whores out of the daughters of Zion, all right, when you're involving yourself in prostitution, and when you're just sleeping around and not tending to the women that you have started a covenant with, this is also a form of fornication. Understanding that you involving yourself in sex work, right, going for sex for hire, right, and also just basically just out here just laying with women, that's fornication, and the Most High God is displeased with that. So, though there's the contrast there. Those are some examples, a couple examples of a couple accounts of physical fornication and spiritual fornication. With that, I mean, we could shut it down. But if you got any closing points, King, before I shut it down, or
I got one more point. Just so we can
our praises.
kind of nail it. This is one precept, right? Because you brought up wizards, right, and witchcraft, right? We got to understand that that doesn't only talk about a motherfucker wearing a hat, one little pointy hats with the buckle on it, or having like a crystal ball, or yada 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 yada, right? Right? It's very plain. The scriptures are very plain, right? It's the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 23. It says, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as an iniquity and idolatry, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord. He hath also rejected thee from being king, right? He's talking, this is Samuel talking to Saul, but we see it right here, right? When you reject the word of the Most High God, the word, that very same word that we just read earlier, is what's supposed to sanctify you, what's supposed to make you holy, right? What's supposed to wash you, pursuant to the book of Ephesians, right? The word, that same word who is Yahweh Shai. When you reject the word, right? When you're rebellious against the word, hey, you're that witch, right? When you go and get counsel from another brother or another sister that's telling you to go against what the word teaches, right? You're going to a witch. You're getting counsel from a witch, right? And when you're stubborn, when you don't want to take the reproof, when you don't want to take the correction, when a brother or sister is coming to you in meekness and sincerity, as the brother brought out, right? And giving you the words of the Most High God, right? And you're stubborn and you want to push back against this, right? You are an idolater and you are in iniquity, right? All of these things are fornication. So we really have to stop and examine ourselves, right? Each and every single day. We bring it out all the time, right? Is that 1 Corinthians 13 and 16? 13 and 6? It's a lot. I gotta get it.
What you looking for, King?
Examine yourselves.
Oh, 2 Corinthians 13:5.
One of them, the water can. 2 Corinthians chapter 13. You said 13?
Yeah, Con. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5.
It's the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahweh Shai HaMashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates? Right? And the brother brought out the definition of reprobates last night, right? A reprobate is somebody that doesn't have fear of the Most High God, right? A person that don't have fear of the Most High God is that person that's going to be rebellious, a person that's going to be stubborn against his words, rejecting his words, right? Thinking that they know better when really they're just moving off their own feelings and off their own emotions, right? Those are witches, idolaters. Those are those that are in iniquity. Those are those that are following the seducing spirits and the doctrines of devils. Those are those who have made themselves one with a harlot, right? Those are the ones that are really in fornication, right? And with that, hopefully somebody was edified or will be edified in the coming days and weeks, or however long this lesson is able to be up on Esau's wicked internet, right? And with that, we bid you a shalom.
Shalom.